Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for today's Carbon Black Security webinar. My name is Brendan Hall. I'm the VMware Product Manager here at Ingram Micro. The speaker we've got for today is Marco Corrent. He's the Partner Manager from the VMware Business Security Business Unit, rather. At the end of this webinar, you should be able to have the basics to pass the VSP sales sort, which is Endpoint Protection 2020. Please reach out to myself or Raj, the BDM, if you need assistance to be guided where to register for that particular cert in VMware's Partner University. To assist, I'll put our details, Raj and I's, in the chat box so you can see. And on this note, I'll hand over to Marco to begin.
Thank you very much, Brendan, and welcome everybody. When we were talking to the team at Ingram Micro earlier in the year, they made this offer available to me, and I jumped at the chance to provide this webinar to you all to give you an understanding of VMware's intrinsic security story, and also to give you a hand in helping pass that first VSP exam. Just a bit of background on myself. I am the VMware Partner Manager here for the Security Business Unit within ANZ, and I came in through the Carbon Black acquisition. So I've been here just on close to coming up to 2 years now. It's been really exciting, but prior to that, I had various roles in security for the last 15 years in the industry. So I sort of class myself as a security guy. I've got a really big interest in it and a personal interest in it as well. I love the whole idea of securing our borders against the adversaries. What I'll do is I'll just start, just give you a sort of a run through of what we're going to cover today. Let me just get the agenda up and running. Bear with me for a second. Right now, okay. All right, so what are we going to cover today? Essentially, what I want to run you through is the endpoint security market, the challenges that customers are facing today in this market, and the opportunity for you, the partner. I'm also going to touch on VMware's intrinsic security strategy and why it's unique. This is important for you to all understand it, as some of you may be VMware partners, some of you may not be VMware partners, but there's something here for everyone. So I wanted to run you through that and share that vision and that security vision with you. Then we're going to jump straight into the Carbon Black Cloud and really go into detail about what it is we have on the truck to sell and the opportunity for you as partners. And then we're just going to give you a run through some of the customers and case studies that we have in country. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So with that, I'll just take you through sort of what we're seeing in the market today. So the current security market is continuing to grow with constant threats, constant cyber attacks. You know, you'll see it on the nightly news now. We're going to see ransomware. It's been increasing by 15 plus times since 2015. The most recent one that you may or may not have seen was the Colonial breach in the US, where they ransomware and the adversaries attacked the oil pipeline and actually stopped oil flowing to refineries or from refineries to distribution points. Just even a personal note, I had a wrist injury that happened to me before Christmas, and I went to my local physiotherapist to get some treatment, and they wanted me to do like a compression test. So I had to, get a tool and squeeze it with my hand just so they could see how much damage was done in that injury. I went back this week, actually, just to continue with that treatment. And they said to me, oh, look, we're really sorry. We have to give you, you have to do this test again. But we can't actually determine if it's been improved or not because we lost all our data. So I started talking to the therapist. I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, we were victims of a cyber attack, and the ransomware, and we lost all of our data. And so it really hit home to me. I thought, wow, a small physiotherapist office is being targeted by ransomware attacks. You know, this is now really starting to affect our daily lives. So it just sort of hit home. I thought, well, I'm going to share this with the team today because I think it's really important to note that whilst everyone thinks that the ransomware attacks are happening at the top end of town, it is happening across every business. And you as partners that are looking after and working with your customers very closely, you need to be across these issues and understand them and be able to help your customers resolve them and protect from them. The other thing is what we're seeing is a lot of breaches are taking longer and longer and longer to discover. So essentially the adversary finds their way into the environment, they sit quiet, and it takes them a long time whilst they're scanning, doing reconnaissance, looking for the data that they want to steal. And generally, you don't know they're there. And 27% of customers are confident that AV will protect them from ransomware. Well, what does that mean? It's a very low score. So they're not comfortable at the moment with these current AV solutions that they have in place at the moment. So the current endpoint security market is a $6 billion market. It's huge. So the way I look at it is if you think back to the days where in the late 2009, 2008, when firewalls hit the market, next-gen firewalls, that completely changed the firewall industry and customers starting looking at next generation firewalls. The endpoint security market at the moment, I see it is exactly the same transition point that the firewall market was in. 62% of customers or firms are increasing their security spending. We're starting to see that, opening up those budgets that were never available for security in the past. And as I mentioned, 15 years ago, you know, having a discussion with a customer was like selling them insurance. Now they really, really, really need it because they've been breached or they're either really fearing of being breached. And 70% of the successful breaches are originating at the endpoint. So this is driving the need for that better endpoint security solution that VMware has. The opportunity for you as partners is to tap into that $6 billion endpoint market. The other opportunity is a lot of the existing legacy vendors in this space that currently have market share are failing to innovate at the rate they need to innovate at. And this is opening the market up for companies like Carbon Black VMware to address that market. And you as partners can come along for that journey with us. The other thing is, if you've never been selling security, there's an opportunity for you to increase your credibility with your customers by selling them advanced security solutions for the endpoint. The other opportunity, which I'll talk later on in this presentation, is by selling Carbon Black to the customer, it gives you the opportunity to then expand. As further use cases come up, you sell it once and then you can add and continue to add more and more to that as the customer requires it. So it's not only a one sale opportunity, it's a one sale opportunity, and as you're working with that customer and their needs expand, you can continue to address that and continue to sell them more and more modules on this platform. And it makes, as I said, the cross-sell and upsell is easier because you can address multiple issues and multiple products using a single agent, one platform approach. So what I want to do is just sort of talk about some of the obstacles that are facing customers today. What we're seeing is customers have got a lot of siloed solutions. So the InfoSec team and the IT team are using a whole bunch of different tools and technology. And this is becoming a bit of a challenge because the two aren't talking to each other. What we're also seeing is a threat at the endpoint isn't correlated to a threat at a firewall or from a proxy. And the issues that the customers are seeing is they don't know how to take all of this information and turn it into something that puts context around that threat. And the other thing that's happened is we're bolting on technology. As we're building apps, building data centers, then we're having to bolt on additional technology, and that's adding a whole bunch of complexity to the environment. So at the heart of an organization is its applications and its data. And we've got a number of control points around that customers are struggling to secure those applications and data with. So the InfoSec team, their job has got to be to harden that endpoint, prevent that malware and ransomware attack, and be able to provide detection and response technology that will allow them to detect and respond and understand what took place. The desktop services team, they've got to make sure that they're providing users, the right users, access to the right technology and making sure that those devices are secured. Then the networking team are responsible for compartmentalizing, segmenting, micro-segmentation, and making sure that east-west traffic is being monitored. Then we've got the ever-increasing requirement for cloud, that customers are moving to the public cloud, but we've got to make sure that we're taking all the security controls from on-prem to make sure that they're in the cloud. We own that cloud environment, even though it's a public cloud, it's the responsibility of the customer to secure that. And the DevOps team are running, building and managing Kubernetes applications. So once again, these are another control point that we have to manage. The result here is, as I mentioned before, we're bolting on technology onto this, and the issue that we're seeing is, once again, we've got all of these tools. Customers that we talk to have in excess of 70 different vendors that they deal with in all these different spaces, and they're struggling to be able to manage and run all this complexity in the environment. So VMware saw the opportunity to really transform this security industry by providing a unified solution that gives context-centric data about a threat and a built-in model. So you don't have to bolt it on, it's built into the platform. And that's what customers are asking for. They want products that they're buying from us that already have security built in. So I just want to take you through a little bit about how we're addressing this. So the InfoSec team, we've now have Carbon Black at the endpoint to allow us to provide that next generation of AV, prevention, detection, and response technology. Customers that have Workspace ONE for their device posture and access control. We have NSX running on the software-defined firewalls, IPS, IDS, running micro-segmentation services as well. We've got Tanzu for customers that are looking to secure their Kubernetes platform. And we've got vSphere running for customers that are looking to provide protection to the workload. Now, all of these are individual products. Now, it's important that I tell you that we're not trying to tell you that for one to work well with the other, you need all of these. However, customers like and like to see that we have a platform style approach. So if they have any one of these different technologies and we're talking to them about Carbon Black, generally we get their interest because they're already a VMware customer. And when we show them what we're doing down the track by integrating these platforms, they get really excited. One of our sales reps, just as a matter of interest, presented this on a whiteboard to a customer who had a competing AV solution, but was a very loyal and had a lot of VMware products built in to into their environment. After they saw this, they renewed with us on the endpoint based on the integrations with all of these other areas. So how are we taking this and building it into the foundation? So VMware as Carbon Black is essentially an endpoint technology that is, think of us as a security camera for the endpoint. What we're doing is taking all of that data in and storing it in a cloud. By doing that, we're gathering a lot of information from a global perspective. And then we're taking that and we're pumping that into integrations into all of these platforms. So if you're just talking to the customer about endpoint, we can talk to them about a market-leading endpoint solution that will protect them, take them to that next generation endpoint space. But if they've got any one of these other products, then you can tie into those and have a discussion about how both of them working together and how Carbon Black, the intelligence and the data from Carbon Black is helping access and make more context to each of these different platforms. So I just wanted to make that clear, just to give you a view of what the strategy looks like moving forward. Once again, customers love to hear the platform story, but not everyone buys platforms. A lot of customers like to buy platforms, hear the platform story, but like individual point products. So once again, as mentioned, all these different technologies are standalone, but today we're here really to talk about Carbon Black. But I just wanted to share that vision with you, just to give you an idea of where VMware is going with this. So the current situation, so let's focus on endpoint security. The current situation that we're seeing is customers are telling us that the traditional endpoint solutions that they have are not stopping modern malware attacks. Why is that? Traditional AV looks at known bad. It doesn't look for non-malware style attacks. And what non-malware style attacks are is the adversary has become really, really sophisticated, and they're sharing this sophistication across the dark web, and you can buy these tools online. And essentially they're coming up with malware that is non-malware that looks like normal processes. So essentially it's like someone comes into your house and you think you know the person, but they're actually disguised. But because they look like the person you think they are, they're in the house, and so you're trusting that is the right person. We're able to look past that identity and past that individual's look and understand, are they really who they say they are? Also, the other issue is we're adding so many tools and agents to the endpoint that customers are complaining that we're bogging down, the industry has been bogging down their systems. With our solution, we're a cloud-based solution, and we release that pressure off that endpoint. So customers that we've trialed and did POCs for in the past have actually said that we've released a lot of processes off the endpoint where they feel that we've turbocharged their fleet because they no longer have to have all of these agents on every endpoint, updating them and going and managing them ongoing. And the third issue that they're saying is the lack of qualified staff is a huge problem. There's been a massive uptake in requirements for skills around security, and a lot of the customers can't afford to have those staff on board. And what they're doing is they're looking at partners, and they're looking to outsource a lot of these security requirements to our partner community. So there's really a huge opportunity there for partners to take up that slack in that space. So how does our solution work? So think of us, as I mentioned before, as a video camera on an endpoint. So what Carbon Black does, it essentially takes data from endpoint being a server, a desktop, anything running an operating system, and it pulls all that data up into a cloud repository. Now, we're recording everything. We just don't record security-only incidents. We record everything that goes on, and we store it for 30 days. If we are detecting a security incident, it then gets stored for 180 days. So you can then look back, and we've blocked it, and then you can look back to see where the attack happened. How we do it is we use adaptive analytics. So we look for known bad, so signature-based type threats. That's in the cloud, it's constantly scanning. But we're also looking for non-known malware using processes that look normal. And we get a lot of this information from our incident response community and our threat intelligence teams that are actively looking on the web at how adversaries are attacking endpoints and attacking environments. And we're taking that information, reverse engineering it, putting it into our platform so we can start looking at particular behaviors and then determine if that behavior is an anomaly or it's normal. And then thirdly, what we have is the ability for our technology to then be pushed up into a SIEM. So if you're running a SOC, or your customer's running a SOC, or you're running a managed SIEM for your customer, you can take that endpoint data, which is very, very rich, and we push it up via APIs into that platform. So this slide really sums up our solution. So we are a single agent technology, cloud-based. So that cloud agent sits on all of the endpoints. It's extremely light. And what it's doing is it's pulling all of that data up into the cloud. Now, we have recently launched an Australian POP, point of presence. So all of this data is stored locally onshore. This is really important for your customers because a lot of your customers will want to know where is the data stored and maintained. So we are one of the only vendors in market that has an Australian point of presence. and we have a Sydney data center, and it is stored locally in a Sydney data center. So customers that are concerned about sovereignty, we've got that covered because it's in an Australian point of presence. Below the line, below the cloud, this shows all of the different platforms that we cover. So we cover Windows, Mac, Linux, Azure, Google Cloud, AWS, and some containers and VMware clouds. Above the line is, more importantly, the services that we offer. Now, before I mentioned there was a land and expand style opportunity for you here. So essentially, if you're looking at just starting with next-gen antivirus, you can buy the product, load next-gen antivirus on as the service, and all it will do is sit there and provide that known malware and non-known malware protection to the endpoint. If you then want to expand it to provide next-gen antivirus and some analytics and EDR functionality, you can then add that EDR functionality onto it. We then have managed detection. So that is a service that essentially, when our people in our SOC in these cloud environments that are monitoring your customers' environments see something that's really, really bad, we can alert them via an email, or in the case that you're an MSP partner for your customer, we can alert you as the MSP partner to say, this is something really bad, you need to take a serious look at this. Over on the left-hand side, we have workload visibility. So this is another key function that has been recently released. And this is allowing you to launch workload security from vSphere. So if you're a vSphere user, you can take that vSphere console and start applying workload security into your at the hypervisor level, and start looking at all of those virtual machines and providing protection. And you can start looking at where their vulnerabilities are in your VMware environment. And this is really key because a lot of customers at this space are using old legacy style tools, loading each one onto an individual virtual machine, and it's clunky and it's not working. So we now have that built into vSphere, and you can launch workload security from that as a single agent. We also have functionality around vulnerability management and device control that comes built into the technology. And audit and remediation. Now, this is another opportunity for you as partners to go and consult with your customers and talk to them about audit and remediation as not only just a security technology, but this is a question and answer module. So if you want to know how many applications are running on any endpoint at any time, you can type in a question and it goes and searches through the environment and comes back with an answer. And this is really, really, really valuable when customers have been breached and we need to know if there's a particular piece of code in any of the endpoints. Our IR partners use this extensively, but also customers use it when they want to look at potentially how many applications they've got running from an IT compliance perspective, or if they're renewing licensing with a vendor and they want to know how many machines are currently using that application. Generally, the vendor will come and say, we need you to renew for 150 endpoints. And the customer says, well, I only think we've actually got it running on 100. Who can tell the truth? You can just ask a simple question. And that access to that data is all through that cloud agent in the cloud. So none of the processing is happening at the endpoint. It's all happening in the cloud. So it's, as mentioned before, it's pulling all of that data into the cloud, and all of that analytics across all of these services on the top line here are all being done in the cloud. Now, I don't want to forget our old friends, our on-premise solutions. Some of our customers that we deal with, predominantly in the government and federal space, don't want access to the to the cloud. They want on-premise solutions. So we have our EDR solution, which is the detection and response capability. We have an on-prem version of that. And we also have what's called app control, which is known as whitelisting. A lot of customers, you may have heard, are looking at ASD Top 8. So if you've heard this Australian Signals Directorate issue out their recommendation of the top 8 controls to ensure that you're protected from cyber attacks. App control, whitelisting, is number 1 on that list. So a lot of customers are looking to deploy app control, and that as an architecture is an on-prem solution. Also, as mentioned, we believe that we're not the only source of data, or we're not the only solution, and a number of customers and partners are using our technology as a way of pulling endpoint data into a cloud and then doing some very clever things with other technology. So we have integration into over 150 different technologies, and I just put a few up here just to give you a sort of a flavor as to some of the vendors that we integrate with. And there's open pre-built APIs that we have, and we're constantly building them for other technologies, security technologies that are in the market today. Just wanted to also just put this slide up to give you an idea of the type of customers. So you might be asking, well, you know, do you really focus on top end of town? You know, are you more focused on government? There's something here for everyone. Actually, when I was joining this company 4 years ago as Carbon Black, the hiring manager said to me, he said, Marco, the opportunity here is great because you can address anything from a 100 user customer up to 100,000 endpoint customer. And as a result of that, over the time we've been in market, we've got customers in oil and gas. We've got technology running on gas rigs. We've got some of the biggest healthcare customers online. Got some really good retail customers, media, and some finance customers. And they're just some of the logos utilizing various types of our products in their security strategies. But I just wanted to give you a sort of a case study to sort of give you a feel of the day-to-day discussions that we regularly have with customers. So Yancoal Australia is a mining company. They've got a few mines around the country, 2,000 odd endpoints, and they were struggling with one of their current providers. So they had Symantec in place, and they didn't feel comfortable with the visibility that it was providing, and they had no idea if there was an adversary in their environment. So they had no idea where to look, how to do some proactive hunting for any malware activity that was in place. And they were looking to renew, and the renewal came up, and they started talking to a number of next-gen AV and EDR vendors to understand what we can do. So we were successful in that, and we were able to show them that they could get better visibility into their endpoints. We could block those fileless attacks. By fileless attacks, I mean those non-malware attacks. It was really easy to deploy because it's cloud-based. They could deploy over a weekend, and as those endpoints came online, they were deploying them without a reboot, so it doesn't take a reboot to deploy that. And they didn't have to hire any additional staff because the platform is quite easy to run. They felt that they could continue to run that using the staff that they had in place. And what this gave them the ability to do is then start looking into each endpoint and understanding if they had any indicators of compromise and started to do threat hunting style capabilities. So the strategic priority was really to replace their traditional AV and then be able to go above and beyond that and then do some EDR and threat hunting capabilities. And they're currently still running the platform, very happy with it, and have expanded to use it for other use cases as well. Our competition in that was CrowdStrike and FireEye, and we were successful. So generally what will happen is you'll have a customer come to you with a renewal for a legacy vendor. I guess the ask them, are they open to discussing the next generation AV, and that Carbon Black VMware have a really strong solution in this space, and would they be open to having that discussion? And then feel free to contact the team at Ingram to get any resources that you may need from us as a vendor to help you have those discussions. So with that, I thought perfect 11:30 on the dot. I thought I'd open it up to Q&A if anyone would like to ask me any questions before I hand over to Brendan, who's going to take you through the details about the VSP certification. So with that, Brendan, I'll open up to the floor if anyone has any questions, would like to elaborate, if they would like me to elaborate further on anything I've spoken about today.
I was just one question here because I was wondering about the. I know you touched a little bit on the compatibility with other vendors. Do you have a list of because I know there's a lot of cybersecurity company, and not necessarily means that all the reseller had a VMware. Is this solution will be compatible to all the vendors or not?
It is, simply because we essentially work across on open APIs. So if you think of us as that endpoint solution, so where we came from as Carbon Black is we was only endpoint. And as I mentioned, we've got like 130 odd connections into various different vendors, and we can share that with you. But the idea there is to take all of that data that we're storing in the cloud and be able to connect that into other technologies that may require that to gain further context into the threat. So it can be standalone and it can work with other solutions. It doesn't have to be VMware. As I mentioned before, we have a platform story, but we also work with multiple other technologies and other vendors. Does that answer the question?
Oh yeah, yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
If no other questions, we'll wrap it up. Yeah, thanks for this, Marco. Really appreciate the presentation, and I know everyone would have taken something away great from it. Yeah, so just as I mentioned at the start of the webinar, you should now have the basics to pass the VSP Sales Cert, Endpoint Protection 2020. Please reach out to myself or the BDM Raj if you need assistance to be guided on where to register for that cert. That lives in our VMware Partner University. So in the chat box, there should still be my email, Brendan and Raj email as well. So yeah, thanks for attending today, and once again, appreciate Marco giving that all. Have a great day ahead. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. See you all.